Hey, this is Tom Calvin. Thanks for tuning in to Tomorrow's Legends.
In 2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this Wonder Twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as Tomorrow's Legends.
Hey, Flash, what is going on this time? What's the costume?
What do you mean? I'm feeling a little Two-Faced today. Get it?
Yeah, but half red and half yellow Flash suit? When did you have the time to put that together?
Time? Do you realize who you're talking to?
And you do realize that you call me the clown, and yet you're the one always dressing up.
Yeah, well, I have reasons.
I can't wait.
And now, here are your hosts, the fleet-footed Flash and his hammer-swinging partner, Harley Quinn.
Hello, Legendaires. Welcome back to Tomorrow's Legends. We are doing our Season 2 rewatch, and today we are covering episodes 13, Land of the Lost, and 14, Moonshot. I am plain old Barry Allen, since we're recording this in 0G tonight.
And this is the best diet ever. I'm the weightless Harley Quinn.
I thought you would enjoy that line. Hopefully you didn't mind that one.
Oh, no. No, I could use some 0G over here. That'd be fun.
We will get into exactly why I threw that in later on in our notes. Let's get right to it. We're going to start talking about Land of the Lost. Wow, where do you want to start?
I'm going to start at the beginning because I threw a lot of shade on last week's episode for bringing Rip back on the Waverider, and I had completely forgotten this point yet again. But they at least attempted to stop Gideon from responding. So I feel like at least they tried. They took the right precautions. It just so happens Rip has like 17 bajillion override commands, and so it didn't matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, they call it a temporary lockout for Gideon, and I mean, I guess his main embedded codes can override anything. It's just, I was curious. I wish we had seen what Sarah had said, you know, like how she instructed Gideon to not listen to Rip, because she says, I've been instructed to not answer you. But she goes and tells him anyway that she's not allowed to, which clues him in. I'm thinking, Gideon, come on.
I know, yeah. Although, and he probably would have figured out whether she said anything or not.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I'm
you
sure.
Know what I mean?
Yeah, she doesn't respond because he was getting a little bit like, Gideon, I know you're there.
Yeah, or he just would have, he probably would have done that, and then he would have been like, just stated the command anyway. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, but still kind of funny. I mean, at least like you said, at least they showed it that they did try. And it shows that they learnt from the last time. Like he obviously had a code before, and this time like, okay, let's stop that because now he's a prisoner.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they didn't do anything.
Yeah, so it made me feel better that they at least took the precautions. But
yeah.
All right, so we get introduced to, I guess, sort of like a nifty thing. I mean, I think we all remembered this, the cognitive intrusion. But it was also another good explanation of what happened to Mick while he was Kronos. I kept forgetting that they did sprinkle those answers throughout this whole season because I think we had a lot of problems with it the first time through, and this time, we were kind of expecting it, and so I think that has kind of smoothed over. So it's always good when it ties back to Mick being Kronos because it kind of fills in those gaps of things that we just didn't understand. And then, of course, this provides an opportunity to restore Rip's memories. So.
Yeah, I mean, they built on that a couple times. At least they're trying to. They're trying to explain why he can come back to normal, at least behave normally and not even really have anything. I mean, Kronos was a stressful, traumatic time for him, you would imagine. So that the fact that he's just suddenly Mick again doesn't really make any sense. So the fact that they're little by little kind of throwing us, morsels of information that explain that, it's good. And it's fun future science stuff. And I like it. I don't mind at all. I think it's great. It connects this season to last season, that the storylines do continue through and they're not just forgetting about it. which we know these shows, all of these shows do forget, by the end of the season or by next season. You're like, what? But you said this 10 episodes ago. Now, why aren't you following that rule? We've complained about it on this show before as well. So it's neat to see 2 seasons in that they still had consistent writing where things are connected and the writers are remembering and not, leaving us empty holes all the time, trying to explain stuff away without an explanation. They're leaving it up to us. So this is good. It's good to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. It definitely was, something that we had liked about these seasons for sure. It was just sort of the fun, like random science stuff that they kind of came up with. So
always exactly. Good. Now, the thing that I do mind though is where the hell did they get suddenly this brain connecting tech and all those chairs that were like set up in a circular pattern hooked up together? Where did that come from all of a sudden? I don't imagine. Standard issue. It was never there before. And it's not like the replicator, they could, Gideon, make us this and make us that. And she rips it up. I mean,
they probably pulled it out of the cargo bay. They did make it a point to state that it was like standard issue in all time ships to have the cognitive intrusion stuff.
Yeah, I guess. But it's just funny. Just suddenly it's all there. They know how to hook it up. They know how to work it. I mean, I guess Gideon's possibly instructing them, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm okay. I can hand wave that away. I buy that was tucked away in a cargo bay somewhere and they just brought it out and Gideon probably told him how to set it up. I totally buy it.
Well, if you haven't clued in yet, the reason I've got 2 different colored costumes on tonight is one of these episodes I'm not happy with and one of them I'm extremely happy with. So I think you'll figure it out real quick which one is which.
Yeah, it's sounding like you don't like this one very much. I actually liked this episode a lot. I thought it was pretty fun. I think one of the scenes that I liked a lot, maybe not just the whole scene, but like all of the different scenes where we got to see like the bizarro side of the Waverider. I thought that was fun. I had forgotten that, we kind of got like a Katie v. Katie scene or Sarah v. Sarah, however you want to kind of look at that. I thought that was cool. I always like to see when, they kind of go up against it's not really a doppelganger. She's just kind of going up against herself. But I don't know. I was enjoying these scenes on the stuck in Rip's mind and getting to see like the bizarro version of everybody.
I think you have that later in the notes. I'll reserve my counter to that when we get down there for sure. But this is definitely this is the reverse Flash side you're going to get for this episode. But you mentioned the Katie versus Katie thing, and I remember we were excited about like, oh, this is going to be so cool. She gets to fight herself. But then I sighed. Like I sighed heavily because the effects for this were so poorly done. When you look at it, and I watched it a couple times again just to make sure I was watching things the way I should be, that her double was bigger than she was. Bigger and heavier. I don't know if they did that in the effects department or what, but she had a way bigger head. She looked a little thicker, a little heavier, and they weren't even looking eye to eye. When they're supposed to be facing each other, nose to nose, they weren't even looking at each other. It was so bad. I just groaned like, come on. Awful, absolutely awful effects. Like you should see that and fix it.
I don't know. I didn't notice all that. I didn't think it was that bad.
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, you go back and pause it on the scene when they're facing each other. Just pause it and go, holy crap, her double has a way bigger head. What's going on there? And then look where her double's looking. Her double is looking way over Katie's shoulder and or over Sarah's shoulder, not even close to eye contact. Like, it's bad. It was really rough.
I guess.
I hate
disagree.
that stuff. I can't. That stuff drives me crazy. Make it look good.
I don't notice that stuff as much as you do, so it does not bother me. Another thing I noticed, Ray was distinctly happier this episode. So I think it's the beginning of happy-go-lucky Ray, which I don't particularly care for. But
yeah, I think so.
He does still at least get some science stuff, but
yeah. Well, I guess when you think about it, he was way excited to get to show off his old stomping grounds, in the old T-Rex territory there. So yeah, that was the beginning of him getting pretty happy because they never really explained how long he was there. I don't remember from that episode if they said how long our team was stranded in these different
I think it was
timelines.
like 6 months or something like that. I thought Ray said 6 months at some point.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was happy. He was showing his Robinson Crusoe survival skills. So he was quite proud.
Yes, he was very proud.
So I noticed you didn't mention it in the notes here, and I know some of our listeners don't even want to talk about it, but the Nick and Amaya stuff started up here, and just God, it was so tongue-in-cheek cheesy this episode. It really still. Last week I was saying, I didn't mind it, but this time it was so in our face with the cheesy romance, and I'm totally with you, Carrie. I know you're listening. I'm totally with you after this episode. I was just like, oh, gag.
I wouldn't say it bothered me, but I wouldn't say it was like my favorite scenes of the episode by any stretch of the imagination. Clearly, I didn't write anything down about it because, I mean, there wasn't anything I really, loved about that or thought. I definitely don't think that those scenes made this the best season. So I sort of am glossing back over it.
Yeah, I guess. So I'm going to get this out of the way now because I'm already grumping. The third thing that I really groaned about, because last week, the last 2 episodes we covered, I was high-fiving the camera work and the directing and the way everything was shot and how great everything was pieced together. And I looked at this episode. It was so bad. Like Rip's film school efforts kind of bad. The angles, the movements, the cuts, the camera movements, everything was so awful. It was shoddy. Like the worst episode of the season for just filming wise. When you looked at it, it looked like something out of film school. Everything was like, I didn't understand the angles. I didn't understand the way the camera was moving. It's like someone's like, oh, I discovered the zoom button. Let's press that. And things would zoom in or zoom out. Like, oh my God, this is so amateur. Hated it. I think that took me right out of the episode with just how bad it looked. And it's surprising. Sometimes I get surprised that episodes like this just make it through and everyone gives it the okay. Go ahead. Yep, it's great. Let's air it.
I don't notice things like that. I have no comments.
Dreamweaver, are you out there? I can't wait to get to your feedback. I'm curious if you
Oh
mention
God, I hope it's not a dissertation on filming.
This one's it was bad. I just, yeah. When you compare it to last week when I was just going crazy about how awesome it was, this was a complete night and day difference. That's all.
I will take your word for it because I do not notice these things and none of that bothered me because I didn't notice any of it. I just was watching the episode, just going along, kind of like happy-go-lucky Ray, la-di-da. Speaking of la-di-da, this is Gideon's first appearance. I forgot that was this episode. I knew it was coming and it had to come this season. But here it was.
That I can say yay about Gideon in the flesh. Highlight of the episode by a long shot. Just as Sarah said, boy, you're hot. I loved it. I mean, this was the first time we ever got to see her, and it was such a surprise. And it's good to see her again. I want her to be a main character that we see every week. I wish they would do that.
Yeah, I know. I wish we would get to see more of the actress. That would be nice for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another spot here, which is a low light of the episode, was when we were in Rip's head. We get Gideon, which was awesome, but then we get Dark Jax, and the effects for him were terrible, like unforgivably terrible, and it was making me angry just how poorly done they were. And Nate's trying to run away, and he's just like slow motion flying after him. Like, come on, really? If you're Firestorm, you could have taken him out right away, not just slowly follow him through the halls of the ship. This episode was awful, all around awful.
Very cat and mouse moment. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It. But I'll switch to something that I did like, and that was Amaya when she was taming, quote unquote, the T-Rex. I thought that was a really cool moment. Just seeing how she gains the connection to the animals and then using it. I thought that was cool. It really showed us that, because I had mentioned that before. I remember asking you, does she have to come into contact with the animal before she can gain its spirit power? And this kind of show, I don't know if it really says yes, that's what has to happen, but this shows us how it happens anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was a very cool moment. No, I agree. It was very neat to see that. Yeah, I think you're right. She probably does have to at some point come in contact with the animals, I would imagine. And I definitely think that's what they were trying to show here. It was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, and the contacts for her eyes. Oh man,
Those looked cool.
The color and the detail that were in them. Like, man, I want eyes that color. They look it was absolutely some of the most stunning eyes I've ever seen. Really, really well done.
They were like an amber color. It was very pretty.
Yeah, really cool.
Well, I liked this episode. I know you're extremely down on it, but I'm going to go ahead and highlight the things that I liked. I liked the kiss with Gideon at the end. I know that many people do not like this moment, but I do. I have been a Rip apologist. I will continue to be a Rip apologist. And I love this scene between them. It was so good. And I love that she remembers everything, that she was somehow like piped into his brain. Love that. So,
Well, don't be putting too much words in my mouth. I've been countering with some good points. I'm really 50-50 on this episode. The parts that I hate, I really hated. And then there were some really good parts in it as well. So
Well, you hate Rip, so I just assumed you hated this scene.
Yeah, well, I like him as a bad guy, but I like his story with Gideon. I'm not with you in loving this episode. There's some great minor moments, but overall, this episode is just poorly put together, and it's just laughably bad in its bad parts. Bottom 2, I would say, of this entire season. Bottom 2 of the worst episodes. But I will agree with you on the parts with Gideon do save this episode in a lot of ways, and that kiss was pretty epic when you think about all that these two characters have gone through in their time together, because we really don't know how long they've been working together as captain and ship, because he's a time master. He's gone back and forth through the history and the future. We don't know for how long, because we've talked about that in our in previous seasons, our timey-wimey time travel talk, when we're wondering, well, if someone stays here in 2016 for a year and they age a year, but Rip takes off and is bouncing back and forth through the timeline, for that entire year, and then comes back to that moment in 2016, has he also aged the same year? Do we notice that? Do we see that? And we've discussed that before. So when you think about that, how long has Rip and Gideon worked together? We don't really know, and it's a pretty, obviously a long time, because it's a pretty powerful story, and I didn't mind the kiss at all. I like their story together, and because I like Gideon so much, she helps put puts Rip in a brighter light for me in that moment.
Yeah, no, I like that moment. That was a good scene.
Yeah,
very good scene.
I had to laugh all to myself though, because there was a moment when at the very end of this episode when Ray was in his Atom suit. And it just struck me funny, the way he was standing in the hallway. I forget who he was talking to. He was standing there, and he just looked like he was wearing metal PJs. The suit just looked really, the way the lighting hit it or something, I don't know what it was, but he looked like he was in metallic pajamas. I just laughed.
Oh, that's funny. I did not notice that. But speaking of ending scenes, I really enjoyed the ending scene where everyone gets to kind of welcome Rip back to the ship, which I'm sure you don't care about, but I'm going to bring it up because I really liked it. And I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, he was really good as an evil character. And don't get me wrong, I loved seeing him as an evil character. It was very cool. But I always felt that he needed to be redeemed and be restored to his former self. I don't feel that I would have enjoyed the character arc if they had left him as a villain permanently, personally.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I mean, he needed his own redemption arc too, because he started off as our original guy that recruited our team, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have this team or this show. So, yeah, I mean, he's got to be able to come full circle in his own story, and that scene, like you said, because of my not being as big a fan of him, whatever. It was a good scene for the team, I think, as it was a big moment to realize that they can save him and have him back. But for me, it just already, he just, as soon as he came back, he just had this sheepish, apologetic kind of body language that just disappointed me. And it just, I'm like, this is not a leader. This is not a hero in any way, because he looks cowardly. Like he's all sheepish and hunched over, and I'm like, come on. Like, and that's the part of Rip that I've just never enjoyed. He just never came off as heroic to me because of that I don't know, just the way he carries himself. But he did have some good moments as we've been going through these season rewatch. He did have some good stuff. I don't think I was on his case too much in our season 1 rewatch. I think I was coming around a bit.
Yeah. No, you're coming around a little bit more. Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely think he's that guy that's just used to working solo. And, he recruited a team out of necessity. And, kind of like they said, I don't know if it's this episode or the next episode, the legends are all, I think it was the next episode, but, about how the legends are always bickering. And he's like, oh, well, it's not because of me. So, yeah. I mean, he never could really like kind of bring them together. I mean, I don't think he was a born leader. He was kind of used to working solo, with the Time Masters. He always had a mission. He always had, he wasn't necessarily making all the big calls. Whereas suddenly in season 1, he kind of was. But
yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I don't think leadership of a team came naturally to him, even though he was captain of that ship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you think back to season 1, when we first saw the Waverider, was there only one chair in the pilot command center? And then they started adding more chairs as more characters joined the show. They started adding more chairs, or was there like 4 behind him? I can't remember, but it's an awfully big ship for him to captain himself, and they've never really shown us the history there. That when a Time Master goes off on a mission, does he have a crew with him? We don't even know that. Like, we've never seen that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a good point. It is a big ship just to be just yourself.
Yeah. Be interesting. I mean, I would be interested to see an episode or an offshoot of this, just a show based around the Time Masters without superheroes. Just they're all guys like Rip, just captains of the ship, and they're Time Masters. They're jumping through the timeline to, do what they do. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we'll never get that, but yeah.
No. It's funny. Before we get into the next episode, I actually was confused at the end of this one with that little scene of Thawne playing the scientist and the astronaut. I couldn't connect. I was not connecting to what our next episode was, and I'm sitting there scratching my head. Why is Thawne at NASA doing this? I completely was over my head, and then when the next episode started, oh man, God, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, no, I remembered what episode. I knew what episode was coming next, and I really liked Moonshot too. I thought it was really good. So yeah, no, as soon as I saw Thawne, I was like, oh, that's right. He hijacks the Apollo 13 mission. I was like, oh, here we go. I love that episode.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the next one, why don't we do our quotes of the week for this one?
Yeah.
Shape out an eagle.
All right. Well, what one? I think you pulled a clip that you probably think I'm not going to really care about, but I think it's fine. Which one did you go with this time?
I liked this one a lot. It's called Captain Rip.
This is your mind. You control everything.
Why do you care so much about getting me out of here?
Because I need your help. You sent the JSA on a mission to safeguard the Spear of Destiny. But the Legion has hunted down the fragments, all but one. Commander Steele has it, and only you know where he is. So you gotta get up, because you're Captain Rip Hunter. And this is your mind, your ship, your rules.
I'm Rip Hunter.
Captain of the Waverider.
Captain of the Waverider. And I'm going to open a door with my mind.
You got this.
So, what was it about this one? Like, it's Sarah talking to him and trying to pump him up, I guess, and get him back on his feet. I guess that's really all there is to it.
It was a good Sarah pep talk. It was kind of one of those like classic talks that we come to expect in later seasons, where she's trying to just like pump somebody up, and that's what she's really good at. And I think that's what makes her a good leader, and I think that's what ultimately makes the team more cohesive. As opposed to like when Rip was in charge, I guess. So it was just kind of nice to see the tables turned a bit and to have her be the one to rescue him. So I liked it.
Yeah, I like the moment. I'm with you. I like the moment for Sarah to prove why she is the captain, because this whole episode was captain versus captain. Well, same with the next one too, but it's kind of establishing her as the new captain now, and this is how I run things. But what bothered me about it is I think the dialogue, the writing was not really smooth, and it just made her sound not as strong in that moment as she could be. Like it's just the way, you are Captain Rip Hunter. And I was just like, oh, that was so corny. And, it's like, come on, you guys could have wrote that a little bit better. Give her something with a little bit more oomph to it to really, pitch that speech that she's trying to, give him some confidence again. To me, the writing was bad. I like the moment for her, but the dialogue they chose was like, you guys could have done better.
Okay.
But,
All right. Well, what scene did you choose?
This one, it looks like I went with this one last time we did this. However many years ago we did season 2, but this one is called A Partner's Worth.
Perhaps you've chosen the wrong analogy. Your partner is dead.
Well, I'm still on the ship.
Your point?
You're not exactly a spring chicken, Professor.
Your point!
My point is you're not going to be around for too much longer. And Jax has to learn how to do this stuff himself. Stop treating him like a kid and more like a partner. Partner.
I like that because it's Mick. Mick dishing out wisdom, which always surprises us and always makes us go, he's not a dummy.
No, I almost picked that moment as well, so I'm glad you picked it. Because it was a good one.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's get into the next episode, which was Moonshot. And this was a big episode for Ray. Big episode for Ray.
It was a big episode for Ray. I mean, he got a lot of screen time the last few episodes. But this one he gets a lot more, but we'll get to him in a minute. I want to mention the intro. We got Mace intro again. I forgot that he did it twice. Maybe he does it more.
I totally forgot he did 2 in one season. I had no idea. And then this one, what made this one so funny is he's insulting us, the viewers, which I was like, hey.
Wasn't it the same as the first time? I thought it was the same one where he definitely calls us idiots or whatever.
Yeah, he says something, but he says something along the lines of, haven't you guys gotten this yet, kind of thing, or haven't you figured it out by now? I don't think that was in the first time. I think it was a little bit different, but still.
Yeah, it was good. So I figured it was noteworthy. I really loved this episode. It's space.
Definitely.
I mean, there's no way that I'm not going to love this episode, but it's also like all about the Apollo 13 mission and like the differences and kind of how like we have to save the day. And so, me, of course, I end up getting caught up in the story. So I didn't take a whole ton of notes, but it looks like you may have. So we have a little bit more to discuss, but overall, yes. Overall, big picture. I loved this episode. That's why my notes were sparse. And it's all about space and space travel. So, of course, I was going to love it.
Yeah, well, just 5 minutes into this episode, it's already leaps and bounds way better than the last episode we just talked about. And yeah, I'll say it right here, as this was a thought that I had towards the end of this episode, is just using the actual Apollo 13 history as a backdrop for a story to play within is absolutely genius. And it made it so much fun. It made it tense and just all around really, really good storytelling. I mean, where were these writers last episode? On holiday? Because it's not even night and day difference. It's like Earth to the moon difference. It's crazy. I couldn't believe how good this one was. As a follow-up, I was so happy to get to watch a fantastically enjoyable episode after one that I was just groaning through. So yeah, loved it.
See, since I didn't have as many issues with the last episode, I enjoyed both of them pretty equally. I was kind of along for the ride. I was enjoying the stories and whatever. I know you didn't really like the last one, and this one was definitely better, maybe a little bit better. So it had, I mean, it's space, so of course it's better. But
just space, but everything. I think I get back to it later, but just everything, the whole package, the way the episode was put together, just, like I said, leaps and bounds, way ahead of the last one. So fire the director, the writers, whoever worked on the last one. I hope they never come back, because this one shows you what our Legends show was made of. And anyway, we'll get into it. There's lots.
I know. I'm gonna laugh if they're like Legends, like staple writers now these days. They're like head of the writing room. Anyways, I didn't look up the writers or the directors, so.
No.
Now, another thing that stood out to me, and I just thought it was fun and worth noting, is that we get to hear, I said Jax's real accent, but I guess it's really Franz's real accent, because it's just so different than his American one. And so it really stood out to me. I was like, oh, I forgot we actually get to hear him talk like normally.
He's so much better at his natural accent.
He is, but his American accent is leaps and bounds better than Maisie's. I hate to say it. He sounds like a typical American, football player kind of jock guy. But you can tell when you watch his performance, you can tell he's really having to use his mouth muscles and stuff to be able to speak that accent. Yeah.
And so I don't think it's an easy one for him to do, but he does it all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think he does a pretty good job with it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now, speaking of things, good job is, again, they found another time period that Sarah, or I should say Katie Lance, just totally suits again, because she looks fantastic in the 70s attire that they put her in. I think this is like the second or third time we visited the 70s, and she always suits it. It's just, she's a very a wonderfully awesome chameleon, because she can fit any time period they put her in.
Yeah, she can kind of fit most of the time periods that they put her in. It's kind of funny. But yeah, they do visit the 70s a lot. That's a good point.
And while we're talking about Miss Sarah Katie Lotz, I'd be remiss to not mention our dear friend podcast overlord, Kevin Batchelder. It is his birthday today. Happy birthday.
Or I guess happy belated by the time you hear this. But
yeah, by the time you hear this, but still, yes, since he's such a Katie fan.
Yes.
I also want to mention how brilliant it was for Henry to hide the spear fragment inside the flagpole on the moon.
Yes.
It struck me this time. I was like, oh my God, that is such a smart move. I don't know how Thawne ever found out that it was up there, but it doesn't matter. Like, of all the hiding spots to hide something, that was perfect. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I can only assume that Rip had told them where all the pieces were before the Legends captured him. That's the only thing I can think of. That he didn't. Right. They just assumed that he would have revealed where Henry was, not maybe necessarily where the spear piece was, but seeing as they're after the fragments and not the people, they probably only cared where the spear piece actually was. Yeah. So that's my guess. That's the only thing I could come up with. So
yeah, well, and then you look at the story even behind that though. Okay, great, he hides it on the moon.
Yeah.
But Thawne, you're thinking, oh, superheroes, no problem. What's the moon? We've got the Justice League. What's their base station that called? Holy, I'm failing as a podcast host. Their space station that floats around the Earth that the Justice League uses to protect over the Earth. Why can't I think of the name of it? Our feedbackers will let us know. Anyway, that you think about things like that, and you think, what's the big deal for Reverse Watchtower? Thank you for Reverse Flash to get to the moon, but he can't fly. He can't do anything. Oh yeah, he's got to come up with some way to get to the moon. Hey, why not? Yep. Disguise himself as an astronaut, get on the rocket, the next rocket going up there, and there you go. He can get there. But this is also in a time period when space travel is new, and we haven't really spent a lot of time up there yet. So it's interesting that he didn't decide to why don't I just go to the year 2040, because that American flag is probably still sitting on the moon. I'll just run up there, grab it, and come back when technology is a little more suitable for space travel. But
yeah, the only thing I could think about that, because I was like, well, why not wait or maybe I think going earlier may have made more sense, but by going around that time period, he kind of ensures, like, I'm guessing he assumes that that's about the time the legends are going to go to, because if he waits till 2040, but the legends were there in 1970, nothing's going to be there.
Yeah, that's
timey-wimey. Super fun.
Yeah, you're right. I guess in the time period, yeah, so he and knowing Thawne, he already knows everything that's happened or has come. Like, who knows? He's gone back and forth however many times.
Yeah. It would have made more sense if he had gone earlier to kind of like beat them, but it was okay. We got a really good episode out of it, so I'm good with it.
If we really wanted to rip it apart, we could say, well, why not just go before Henry puts the fragment in the pole? Just go get it from Henry earlier, but then we wouldn't have an exciting episode. Yeah,
well, that's what the legends tried to do, and they couldn't, and failed because Henry like disappeared on the drop of a dime.
Yeah, that's right. Still, good stuff. I just love the idea. Just the fact that he hit it up there. I love it. What a smart guy. And then I'll come back to him, I think, in a little bit. I want to talk about the actor, but I want to just talk about this episode for a sec, because I think they got their budget back, or the effects crew back, for this episode, because the entire show was spectacular with its effects. Where last episode it looked absolutely amateur hour. This episode, the space stuff with the shuttle, the pod, the Earth, the moon, Ray flying around, running around on the moon, all of it. It was so well done and so much more believable because it didn't look hokey at all. It looked believable. It looked real. And I mean, the space travel stuff, when you see the Earth there, it was gorgeous. Just absolutely beautiful. Well done effects this time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I thought the effects were really good as well. I thought it all looked pretty cool and pretty believable. So I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
Here's another thing that's super fun that I completely forgot about until I saw it again, was the Beetlejuice song where Victor Garber just like breaks into song in the middle of the mission control.
I totally forgot about it too. And it was a bit awkward to watch even this time around. Just if you look at the situation, they're in a tense moment and he just interrupts the entire thing by breaking out in this crazy song, and everyone's just looking at him like, you're a guest here. What are you doing? The way they're looking at him. And I thought, man, that is actually really awkward. And I felt the awkwardness for them. But what I love, though, is Mick chiming in and providing backup. Come on. Like, you never expected to see Mick sing or even want to sing or even be part of that. And yet he sings. And then he compliments Stein later on his nice voice. And it's like Mick actually enjoyed singing in that moment. I think he did.
Yeah, no, that was pretty funny. I think what made me laugh, though, is every once in a while when they cut to the scenes of like the mission control guys, and you see a couple of them kind of like dancing, like, oh yeah, this is fun.
Those crazy Brits.
Yep.
No, it was fun. If you think about it, look at the running. These last few episodes that we've been covering, they've really been feeding us a lot of Mick and Stein scenes together.
Yeah, I didn't realize we got so much with them together, but we really have.
Yeah, and they're fun. It's a fun duo. We talked about it last week as well. Mick always scaring him, so they're having good stuff together.
Yeah, for sure.
Now here's an idea that really struck me this time as well, and the idea of Thawne not having super speed because there's no gravity. That is a really cool concept, and it hit me this time because I was like, you know what? I don't think Flash even ever came up with that. But yet our Legends show does. Thawne can't use his super speed without gravity. I thought that is a fascinating concept, and I wish they would explore that more, even maybe on the Flash somehow, as a way to stop evil speedsters or something. I don't think they've ever used it. I just thought a really neat idea as a way to counter speedsters.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever been in that situation where they've had to, they've been in tons of situations where they've needed to like neutralize a speedster, but they've not had the opportunity because it's not like they've, been on the moon or been in a spaceship. It's just not really part of what they do normally. So, but
unless you trap them in a chamber, you can't get rid of the gravity. Yeah. So.
Right. Yeah. Or unless that's your meta ability or whatever.
Yeah. But still, it's just a cool concept to see Thawne totally knocked down to being basically just a regular guy. Because without his speed, he has nothing. He's smart, but he's stoppable. He's killable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just loved it. great idea. Just fantastic. I mean, it knocks Eobard Thawne down, Reverse Flash down a notch by taking him out of his element and getting rid of his powers. Now, what's he going to do? What's our team going to do with him when he's vulnerable like that? It was awesome. It was a great situation to put Thawne in as a character, because it all we've known him as is this psychotic evil speedster. Well, now that's part of why this episode was really, really good, is because we got a lot of Thawne story that we've never gotten before.
Yeah. Well, it made him relatable too. So
yeah,
I feel like that helps. All right. Here's what I thought was awkward all episode was our dueling captains, which was definitely happening. And so their arguments were even causing like some bigger issues, like, that whole scene where she's trying to fly through the meteoroids. So that definitely caused some trouble. I mean, I get it. Like, I feel like it was only natural and inevitable that was going to happen. And we kind of needed to see it happen, because it's definitely got to be hard to basically, like, it's your ship, but you're not really the captain anymore. And the team doesn't follow you. They follow someone else who's, basically running the ship like it's her own, because, it kind of is. And so it was interesting. I think we needed to see it, but it also made for some really awkward scenes between the two of them for sure.
Yeah. Again, I think this is where the writing was maybe a little bit off. It didn't play as well as it could have, with the two captains being at odds with each other. Well, who's in command? I've commanded the ship for a long time. Well, you've been gone for a year. I'm in command now. The team trusts me. I think they could have fleshed it out a little bit better and make it not so awkward. And we don't know how many actual years Rip has been running the ship for, so old habits die hard.
Yeah.
And considering he wasn't really away from it when time travel is involved, but I am still with you. Like I was just saying, it didn't play well. I'm not sure if it was the writing or how they acted it out. I don't know. It could have been better, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was definitely I think the tension was intended for sure to play it out between them, but yeah. Yeah.
It was, I think it was meant to be there. It just wasn't written the best, I think.
Gotcha.
That's why we felt awkward. We shouldn't feel awkward. It should be a tense moment. Like, oh yeah, like, who is going to be in command? And yeah, instead we felt a little bit icky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Now, something that I loved about this episode was the contrast. And what I'm talking about is the 1960s technology going to the moon. Back then, if you think about it, 1960s, we have the Great Space Race. Mm-hmm. It was a big deal back then for that moment in history, in American history and Russian history too. And, the people there that were there in the 60s, they all think they're part of something groundbreaking, world leading, something that's just like, oh my God, we're going to the moon. Like, this is history right here we're creating. Mm-hmm. And then you have this futuristic time ship fly in and be able to do what the 60s technology can't. They just simply, boop, let's go to the moon, let's fix this, let's use a tractor beam, grab the thing, fix this, whatever. And they do it without even blinking, like it's nothing, this is yesterday's business. And it just creates this crazy contrast of how much technology has changed, how much it's advanced, that it really stood out to me this time. And I loved it. I loved that crazy contrast of the two different eras of technology.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely insane what it took to get to the moon the first time. And it's incredibly amazing that any of them made it home alive, to be honest.
Yeah, when you think of the actual mission, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which and this was the same time period that the Apollo movie with Tom Hanks was about?
It's Apollo 13.
This mission?
It's this mission. Yeah.
It is this mission. I couldn't remember if it was Apollo 13 or what number.
Yeah, a couple of the shots I think were homages to Apollo 13, where Ray is trying to guide the docking with the LEM and the command module. The way he looks out the window, that was definitely an Apollo 13.
See, I haven't seen that movie since it came out. That'd be a good one to watch on my home theater screen when I get done.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I've seen it since it's come out. Again, since it's come out. So it's a good one.
I remember it being really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's Nate's turn to struggle with his own family history and wanting to fix it. It seems every season, at least one character has to go through that.
Usually the
I can
new
fix the timeline. I can change my family. I can, and then we have to watch. No, you can't. We have to go through it every season with at least one or two characters.
Yep. Every season. And it's always the new one.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know we'll get it with Zari. Yeah, we get it.
Comes every time.
Yeah. Now I can talk about the actor who played Henry Haywood. I wish I should have looked up the actor's name. This is silly of me to not have his name. I enjoyed him so much in this episode. He, for some reason, more so this time than the first time we went through it, he perfectly portrays what a man in the 60s would be like, his values, his ideals, the way he sees things, the way he treats other people. It really stood out to me this time how well he portrayed. And I guess you could throw this into my contrast discussion as well. You've got these futuristic people from 2016 interacting with people from the 1960s. It's a huge contrast. And I think Henry was played to perfection by this guy. And I loved it. I loved how he fit right in. And because he got dropped off there and he worked his way up through NASA and he played the part. It was awesome.
Yes. The actor's name is Matthew McCall. I looked it up.
There you go. Thank you, Matthew McCall. I saw your fingers typing fiercely while I was speaking. So good. Matthew McCall. Yeah, good job on him for sure.
Oh, yeah. I loved him as this character. I thought he did fantastic. I think he's easily my favorite of the JSA members.
Yeah, and especially because we get to dedicate some, quality time with him too. So that really, I think that helps a lot.
Exactly. And I mean, the direct connection with Nate and all of that history and everything that Nate kind of struggles with, I think that also helps flesh him out just because we already know more about the story than what he has to tell us. So,
yeah, no, well said. It gives him some depth. There's some background and some story to him and connection to a character that we love. So, yeah, it really, I think it adds to him overall for sure. Yep.
Okay. I want to talk about Ray on the Moon for a minute. Because I absolutely love these scenes. It was so fantastic. And I didn't catch this the first time around, but he states, and now I know how Matt Damon felt. And then when he's making his own video, when Eobard interrupts him, he's reciting lines from The Martian as he makes his own video because he gets interrupted when he says, I'm about to science the shit out of this. And I'm like, oh my God, he's quoting The Martian. That's amazing. I don't think I'd seen I feel like I hadn't seen The Martian. I'd read it, but I hadn't seen the movie maybe when this originally aired, and I've since seen it a couple of times, and so I definitely caught on to that.
Yeah, I mean, The Martian's a great movie. I really loved it. So it was fun to see. You're right. I think this episode came out first, or not first, but I'm trying to think of the timeline, actually, of when The Martian was out in comparison to this episode.
I hadn't seen it. Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, because it feels like we knew The Martian first before this episode, but we did. But it seems like at the time that this episode originally aired, we don't know what he's talking about. I don't know. It's really strange. I understand what you're feeling, and it was really, really good stuff for Ray this entire episode. I mean, he's living out yet another fantasy, and this time we're along for the ride. First he has to save the shuttle pod, then get the fragment of the spear, then enjoy the moment. I mean, I love that scene when he's on the moon, and I think I used it as a clip way back when. His whole
yes.
The orchestral music as he's running across the moon to get to the flag, da, 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 da. It's this big heroic moment for him. And he's hoping for some recognition, and everyone's like, yeah, great, Ray, whatever. And he's like, guys, I'm on the freaking moon. It's this massive moment for him as a character in our TV show, and nobody could care less. And yet I was right there with him, and I know you were. Yeah. We love this entire scene. It was a great moment for Ray.
Yeah, it was. It was a great moment for Ray. I mean, I loved all of these scenes, even in the ones with Thawne. the back and forth between them, like it was just good. And even like Thawne being like, oh, it's just nice to talk to another scientist. I've missed this. And then, we forget because he's not Tom Cavanaugh that he still is that same character. And he like brings up working with Cisco and working with Caitlin. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that was a nice little detail to add in there. So I loved all those scenes and the whole evolution of Ray and Thawne throughout the episode.
I'm right there with you. I loved it so much too. It was such a great new reveal to the Thawne character where we see a hint of what he was like before the superpowers, because he was a scientist, and he was a scientist just wanting to learn and expand his knowledge and understand things. And and I have a little line here. There is good in him. Ray sensed it. It's kind of like Luke Skywalker. There's good in you, Father Vader. I sense it. And I think Ray picks up on that. The fact that Thawne is without powers here, and Ray being the same type of scientist, entrepreneur, engineer kind of mentality, he can connect to what Thawne's saying, which is why Ray lets him go and understands that they can help each other to survive this moment, because they really are on their own.
Yeah.
And I like this moment for Thawne because it adds so much depth to him. Instead of just being a bad guy, it completely gave him some depth, and it allowed us to connect to him as a character, as a person before the evil powers. And it was great. Just really, really good stuff for Thawne.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah. We got a lot from his character. A lot. Yeah.
But I did have to laugh because they had already made the point of Thawne having no powers without gravity.
Yeah.
Yet in this whole sequence, while they're walking around the ship fixing it, they had normal gravity and were moving around quite normally. Yet he says, without super speed, all of this work is tough. And he's rubbing his hands like, oh my God, because normally he would just zip it in a second, but he's like rubbing his hands. Oh, this is tough work, or something like that, whatever he said. But talk about a big misstep in this show's, I don't know if it's the directing or something they missed, but because if you think about it, they have no gravity. They should be floating around the entire time while they're fixing the ship. Or at least if they move from one panel on the wall to the other panel, they kind of just glide over and not they take a few steps. I'm like, really? You guys are missing this, that they're not in a gravity environment right now? I just had to laugh. That was the only weak point of this entire episode. If we were still doing our nitpicks, that would be it.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. They definitely show Ray literally walking at one point, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be happening, but we'll just go with it. It's all right.
So funny.
All right, so I'm gonna talk about one of probably the most heartbreaking scenes in the entire series, really. One of the most. Yeah. This is where his grandfather ends up sacrificing himself, and spoiler alert, it's my quote, so we'll get to hear it. But I just wanted to give it an honorable mention. I mean, it was well acted, it was powerful, it was heartbreaking. Oh, loved it.
Oh, it brought a tear again this time around, even though I knew what was happening. It's powerful for sure. And it's surprising that they kill Henry off here. I mean, I remember how shocking it was the first time they did that, because he's a Justice Society member, and he's the leader of that team, and Nate's grandfather. And I mean, there's so much here, and they kill him off here. It was shocking the first time, but the scene between him and Nate, when Nate's stuck behind the door, it's powerful. Really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is for sure. Now, something that I wonder, because we get one of these last scenes with Nate talking to his dad, a very young version of his dad. And I wonder if perhaps he did change the future a little bit here. And maybe this is why his dad is different in season 4, or at least from what we end up seeing at the end. The more happy-go-lucky Hank Haywood. Or maybe I'm forgetting some details along the way. But it feels like this little pep talk should have changed something a little bit.
Well, it makes you wonder, because he did sneak in a few words of wisdom to the younger version of his dad, kind of like Stein did to the younger version of himself.
Right.
If you think about it. And look what that did to Stein's storyline. So him saying these few words of wisdom to this version of his dad, I don't know, because when we meet Hank later, remember the first couple episodes, he's the villain. He's a jerk. And he's quite and they had a complete change. And remember, we looked into it, and it was all about the producers saying, "Oh, we can't make this guy a bad guy. He's too great." And they completely changed it and rewrote it. And we're like, what? I mean, that was something we complained about in those coming episodes, what happened? Because we never saw the transition or why he suddenly went from being super evil bad guy, leader of the military, to the suddenly good guy. Hey, I'm here for you, son. And it makes you wonder, how does that connect to this episode? Could this episode, with him saying these few words of wisdom to the younger dad, could that be one of those ripple effects where it takes time to ripple through the timeline and eventually catch up, and then boom, suddenly Hank is nicer because of it?
I mean, I think if we needed to stretch and find an explanation that this would work and that would work, but dollars to donuts, the writers straight forgot about this.
Probably. Are you giving away donuts? I'll take a couple.
Sure. Send some your way. It might be a little stale when they get there, though.
I'll eat week-old donuts. I don't care. That's my crutch. So a point that I wanted to make here is, by the end of this episode, I think Thawne actually has some respect for Ray. Just like Ray kind of got some respect for him with their time stuck in the puddle. And I wanted to ask you, does that play out later? I can't remember. Do we see Thawne at all ever showing that he did gain some respect for Ray?
Other than maybe what he says in this episode, I don't think so. I don't think we get any more with it. But I do agree that at least in this episode that there was a little bit of mutual respect, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess something we can keep an eye on, but you might be right. Now, the last thing I have about this episode is it is the only episode, as far as I can remember, to have bonus scenes in the credits, like a movie.
Yes, I thought that was so funny. I was like, oh, I forgot that they replayed the scene. That's so cool.
How funny would it have been if they had outtakes of Mick doing more singing?
Oh, I was hoping it would be longer, and it wasn't. It was the same. It would have been funny, though.
All right, well, let's get to our quotes for this episode.
Shape out an eagle!
All right. I think we got some good ones for this one. What one? Well, you already kind of alluded to it. Which one are you going with?
I did. I chose Ultimate Sacrifice.
Don't do this.
I am so sorry, Nathaniel.
No, you open that door. The explosive decompression will suck you out.
If I don't, you will all die.
I can do it. Let me do it. I have powers now.
No. I won't let you risk your life. I have fulfilled my duty, protecting my piece of the spear. But I'm just a grunt. Now it's your turn. You can figure out a way to destroy the spear. Don't let it ruin another person's life.
Your son is at mission control. He's there. He's waiting for you. Come on.
Give him a message for me. Tell him I'm sorry for leaving.
Don't. Please don't. Please don't.
Oh, the music just breaks my heart.
I know.
Oh.
The music definitely makes it for sure.
Oh, yeah. I probably should have played yours last because mine actually comes quite a ways earlier in the episode. But this is a scene that we've been talking about, Ray and Thawne in the shuttle. And I called this one Not Such a Monster. And it's Thawne basically explaining why, who he is as a man. I want to live. And that really hit me hard as to it gives us a different perspective on Thawne as a character, not just a bad guy like we've been talking about. So here it is.
You could use the dwarf star in your exosuit to power an entire city, but instead you chose to become the Atom because you weren't satisfied with your small, pathetic life. There is no shame in wanting to be greater, to reach higher, to walk on the moon.
Is that why you want the spear? Reach higher, become greater, run faster.
No. I'm after something much more elemental. I want to live. Surely you can sympathize.
As we can all. Like, how do you argue with that? I want to live. That's the basic survival element of every living being.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
absolutely. Oh, that was a great scene. That was a contender for me. So glad you chose that one.
And he knocks Ray down because Ray's sitting there giving him the beans, but he's like, well, what about you, Mr. Keep the Dwarf Star Medal all for yourself? You could power an entire city with it. And Ray's like, okay, you got me there. So I think that's where the respect comes from between the two of them.
Yeah. They're not as different as one might think, which is interesting.
No, not at all. All right. How about ratings for these guys? What are you going to give that very first episode?
Hey.
The Land of the Lost.
I liked these episodes. I gave it 9 terrifying mindscapes.
Wow. A 9 for that one? Okay.
I don't notice all the little nitpicky, filmy things that you notice. So
I wonder if you go back and watch it with my perspective that I give you, would you notice those things and understand a little bit? I don't know. I
kind of don't want to because I feel like it'll ruin the episode for me, to be honest, and I don't want to ruin it.
Fair enough. I'm only giving that one 6 more writers this episode needed to fix it.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's bottom 2, I said. I'm pretty sure I would say bottom 2 this entire season. All right, what about for the Moonshot? Because I know we both loved it.
We did. 9 helpful villains.
Helpful villains, yeah, to save themselves, but helpful still. Yep.
Yes.
I'm also giving it a 9 giant steps for Ray.
Giant steps for Ray, nice.
Well, let's get into our feedback.
Monitoring powers activate.
I'm curious what our 3, the same trio that has been with us all season long, thinks about these 2. Let's start off with a voicemail from X-Force 11. Here he is.
Hello, legends. It's Jeff X-Force 11 leaving my feedback about Land of the Lost and Moonshot. What I appreciated about these episodes was really the character development. We had some cool action events, and we had some good, fun sci-fi adventures and special effects and things like that. But really, it was the character beats that I really enjoyed. I loved getting to see Ray in both episodes really shining and showing his strength of how he survived those 6 months, gets dinosaurs and everything else, and his scientific capabilities there in Moonshot. I just really appreciate that, and just we really missed that in later seasons. We got to also see Nate and Amaya, the beginning of their relationships and the rocky starts. And I remember when I was first watching, I was really hoping they would find some way of making that relationship work. But unfortunately, they didn't. And we get to see Nate's interaction with his granddad and just the character and just how hard it was to see him lose his grandfather and know that it was going to have that effect on his life and he wasn't going to be able to change history. But it was just powerful, and I really appreciated getting to see Rip and getting him to see him come back to himself, really figure out that he had set the team up well and Sarah was leading well. So I really appreciated the character aspects of these 2 episodes. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force 11 is out.
Yeah, you know, listening to Jeff there, I think what I can appreciate with Rip and the story they wrote for him in these 2 episodes is that when he comes back to himself, he remembers everything that he did as a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is really good for his character. That gives him a little bit more depth and maybe gives him a little bit more of a serious edge to him that I can appreciate. And I'll have to pay attention going forward from here on out if I do end up liking him better than I have up to this point. So I like that Jeff was bringing that up. That is, you know, what this does for Rip. And the fact that the way he mentioned it too, that he can be, I don't know if proud is the right word, but he can be content in the fact that he got this team started on the right path, and Sarah's become a good leader because of him. And the team has continued his mission, fixing the timeline even without him. So that he can really take credit for that. So I'll give Rip that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that was well stated. For sure.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Next up is a voicemail from Carrie Johnson. Here he is.
Hey, Flash and Harley and fellow legends. It's Carrie here with some feedback for you for Land of the Lost and Moonshot. And I'm just going to start right away and say, man, these two episodes just show how much this show has missed Brandon Routh. I mean, dude is just so much fun in these two episodes. I mean, from being back in the Cretaceous period, messing around with Gertrude and dinosaurs and making iguana soup. And then on Moonshot, Ray running around on the moon and sciencing the hell out of shit with Thawne. I mean, that's just freaking fantastic. And I don't know if I wanted to see that, knowing that we won't get to see that anymore on the show because he's gone. Well, let me just let that go. So let's start with Land of the Lost. Science fiction shows always do the trope of going into someone's mind. It can be fun. Sometimes it can be incredibly cliche. It just sort of depends. I thought the use of it in this episode, I thought it was pretty fun. And more than anything, I mean, let's be real. I mean, all the doppelgangers and that sort of thing was fun, but come on, man. This whole thing was a setup to see Amy Pemberton as Gideon in the flesh, and the freaking trope wins just for that purpose alone. I mean, I'm going to give this episode, and I usually don't do ratings, but just because we got her in the flesh, I'm giving this thing a 9.5 out of 10. Probably could have gone higher, but it is what it is, right? And here's a shocker and a surprise for you guys based on my feedback from last week. I did not totally hate Nate and Amaya in both of these episodes.
Opposite, Carrie.
Watching Amaya use the totem to conjure up the power and spirit, I guess, of a dinosaur was really cool to see, particularly her interaction with Gertrude. And going back to what Martin said during the last pod, I don't know exactly how Amaya accesses these animal ashes, I guess is what they're called. I don't know if it's a situation where she has to be in contact with the animal first, or she can just conjure up any animal that she wants at will. But either way, it was a fantastic use of her power. It was a fantastic use of CGI. And it was a subversion of what we probably should have expected. I'm pretty sure we were expecting there was going to be some sort of fight. There was going to be some sort of battle. Nate was going to steal up and what have you. And we were going to have a fight with a dinosaur. And basically, this episode, the writing subverted that by basically having Amaya tap into her ashe and use it as a way to communicate with Gertrude. And I thought that was fantastic. Loved that. But like I said, the highlight of this episode obviously was seeing Gideon in the flesh. Amy Pemberton was fantastic, and we must. I don't know if I said must, but we must see her in this season, or else I will call it a failure. Let's move on to Moonshot. And again, Ray was another highlight of this episode. Getting a chance to step foot on the moon, man. And you could just see how Brandon Routh, how he played that moment. Ray is that guy. I mean, hell, we all want to step foot on the moon, right? But I mean, he was just able to capture the imagination of that moment. And it was just really great to see that. And Brandon Routh was fantastic as Ray in that moment. Beyond that, we got a chance to see Ray get to spend some time with Thawne. And in that moment, I think it's one of the superpowers that Brandon Routh has is Ray, is that you get to see the humanity that he gets to bring out in other characters. And Thawne got to show a glimpse of his humanity. I'm not saying it was lovey-dovey, but we got an opportunity to see what his motivation is. And the simple fact is he wants to survive. He doesn't want to be wiped off the face of existence. And certainly he's gone about it in a terrible and horrible way. But I think we can all sort of get a sense of how we feel if we had to claw and fight for our existence and what that would do to us. So being able to see that through the lens of Ray, and the skill of Brandon Routh, and I'm blanking now on the actor who plays Thawne, but I mean, just having those two guys together in that moment was really, really cool. And again, like I said before, I know you guys are shocked and amazed, but I did not hate Nate and Amaya in this episode. One of the better things that their relationship has brought forth was we get a chance to see, or we get a chance to get a first glimpse at the traumatic childhood that Nate had because his dad was so cold to him. And the reason that his dad was so cold to him because he didn't have a father either, which is because Henry had to be away from his dad and all that. So we got a chance to sort of feel that and sit with that, and that sort of emotional roller coaster sort of shed some light on why Nate would want to have a relationship with Amaya, because he wants that sort of connection. He wants to be able to share that. And we also see, because of his traumatic childhood, why he would want to, or at least why he would not want to share with Amaya why it's so important that they don't have a relationship and that she return herself back to the timeline, because she's important to it, and more importantly, her granddaughter is important to the timeline. And because of the trauma that Nate has gone through, we sort of see why he is clinging on to his relationship with Amaya, and why he wouldn't so dispassionately say, hey, I gotta stop this relationship with Amaya because she's so important. We sort of get an idea of why he would sort of be selfish in that moment, and it sort of plays well. So, like I said, I did not hate Nate and Amaya in this episode. In fact, their story helped move the plot forward, and I certainly appreciated that. And of course, it was nice to see the tease at the end about Amaya being able to see what obviously happened to her community when she left, and obviously the impact that our granddaughter will have on the rest of the world. And it's going to be really nice to sort of see that story get told and how this all moves forward. I give Moonshot probably a 9 out of 10. I thought it was a really well done episode, and if I'm telling you that I like Nate and Amaya in it, then that should tell you everything there is to know about this episode. Liked it fantastically. So that's it for me. I'm interested to see and hear what everyone else has to say about this episode, and I will certainly be ready to give you guys feedback on the next two. This has been a lot of fun. Can't wait to do more. See you guys. Take care.
Awesome stuff, Carrie. Except for one thing. I join you on the Nate and Amaya, and you abandon me.
So funny. You two went polar opposite this week. It was hilarious.
Oh, man. How could you? But, yeah, good explain. I'm also there with you about the Gideon stuff. You guys have heard me time and time again. She's got to become a regular character, and I know exactly how to do it if the writers would just listen to me. But one thing I want to bring up, he talks about Ray, and Ray bringing out the humanity in all the other characters he comes into contact with. And I really love that perspective that Carrie has. That's just a fantastic way to look at it. And it's so true. Ray just, because he's such a good human being, just a great guy. And, we always call him the Boy Scout or whatever, but he really does tend to bring that out in people, because people, when they're with him, they don't want to do bad things. They don't want to hurt him. They don't want to, it's like there's something about Rey that makes them rethink their path that they're on, if it nefarious, evil, whatever. It just or even good people that are with him, that you absorb some of that energy that he exudes, that, life is about doing good things and not controlling and pushing people around. It's just neat. I like how Carrie put that into perspective about, how Rey affects everybody around him, and it's cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. He always has really good points and good perspective. Always good.
Yeah. All right. Last up this week is our friend Dreamweaver, and she's got an email for us. You take Land of the Lost because you liked it better than I did. I'll take Moonshot.
I was going to suggest the same. All right. Hello, Flash, Harley, and Legendaires. Sorry I'm getting this one in pretty late. I didn't have a lot of time this week and didn't even get to watch the episodes until Wednesday. Hope this gets to you on time. Well, look, it did. So, good news.
It did. Yeah, I mean, we have our deadlines for feedback, but honestly, if you get it to me before, like we record Thursday night, so if you get it to me Thursday early evening, I'll still get it. So
it's a soft deadline.
Yeah, it's a soft deadline. Yeah.
All right, episode 13, Land of the Lost. All right, right off the bat, that first scene with Rip dropping the command codes and shutting down the ship showed just how good of a villain Rip was. That was an exciting way to start the episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching him be so aloof and unbothered. And Gideon has a self-destruct mode. I love how a self-destruct mode is just a catch-all in just about every comic book or sci-fi property. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, God, look at the size of those needles. What? Are they jamming those directly into their brains? Yes.
I know.
That's some plugging into the Matrix type of stuff right there. 100%.
The thing is, you don't really see it going, but when Jax first wakes up and he pulls it, you see the thing come right out of his head as he's pulling away from it, and that's when I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
ouch."
It's nasty."
Ugh.
That's all to say, though, that I am a sucker for a good mind dreamscape type of scenario, so that automatically elevated this episode for me. See? Me too.
I think I'm alone on this one.
I think so too.
This week.
I really liked the creepy stylized Waverider inside of Rip's mind. The lighting was cool. The twisted versions of the team were cool. Evil Mick. Well, I guess that's just regular Mick, but still. And I especially liked Dark Firestorm and how they changed the color of his flames. The Sarah versus Sarah fight was a bit clunky the way they filmed it, but it was still cool. See, it was still cool.
I just can't get past it, but okay.
And this is the first instance of human Gideon.
Yay!
All of the dinosaur stuff was just kind of meh for me in this episode. Yeah, I agree. It was something for the rest of the cast to do, and wish there had been a bit more conflict there. I did like seeing Rey's old home with the little figures of everyone, and Amaya communicating with the T-Rex was cool, especially with the effect of her eyes changing. But I did think it was the Nate and Amaya stuff that gave it the meh feeling. I don't actually mind them as a couple, but I think it's all the moments they've hooked up or have tried to hook up so far have come at just such awkward times. Yes. And it throws the pacing of the episode off. Did Rip deserve that slow-mo walk back to the bridge and a moment with everyone? It was nicely done, but did his character deserve that moment? Kind of debatable to me. Maybe it's because I was never emotionally invested in Rip or his storyline, but I don't know. I guess I would have preferred more quiet one-on-one moments with characters he had hurt, like how he had that scene with Sarah directly before this. Just my thoughts, but it felt a little showy to me. I liked that scene a lot.
Yeah, I'm in the middle.
Stray thoughts. There was a shot of Rey flying back into the ship after fixing the delineator, and it was fully CGI, but we end up seeing the full jump ship docking bay. I don't think we've ever seen that full space before, or rather in this case, ever again. It's just either the interior of the jump ship or the door to the jump ship, but not the full bay. It looks like it would have been a neat set extension for the Waverider.
Yeah. I'm going to have to revisit that one scene. She could be onto something there, yeah.
I noticed that Jax and Sarah have had a lot of scenes together this season, and this episode really showcased that as well. The writers sometimes had trouble giving Jax substantial storylines, but I rather liked the brother-sister dynamic the two of them had. Overall, I really enjoyed all the Mindscape stuff and just wished for a little more out of the Dinosaur Cretaceous period storyline.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I wished for a lot more, but you know. All right, she continues with episode 14, Moonshot. That shot at the beginning of past Rip walking away and it transitioning to the team with present Rip was neat. After a few rewatches of that scene, it totally dawned on me how they did it. And it was actually quite simple. Want me to spoil the secret for you, Flash? There were actually a few neat cinematography tricks this episode. I liked when Henry was talking about how he didn't hide his piece of the spear on Earth, and it rack focuses to a photo of the flag on the moon that's hanging on the board behind him. Yeah, see, cool stuff. I also liked how the team just figured out where Henry was and how to get to him without Rip. Sorry, Rip, I feel like I'm hating on you a lot, but Sarah is just such a better captain. But one thing I will say is that if Rip was still around post-season 3, maybe we would never have gotten so far away from time travel plots.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep.
Excellent point.
That's probably why they killed him.
Yeah. The scene where Stein sings the Banana Boat song will never not be funny.
Mm-hmm.
Rip and Sarah squabbling right as they are headed into an asteroid field was rather annoying. Oh, I should say. So I read the part wrong. Rip and Sarah, not gotcha. Is it CW policy to have characters argue about things at the worst possible moments in order to create avoidable problems?
Yes.
Everything I know about Sarah leads me to believe that she would have stayed focused while navigating that field in order to try to protect everyone. But nah, not in this moment, apparently. Oh well. I did really like the scenes between Ray and Thawne. This was the closest we've probably ever gotten to Thawne being humanized and grounded, and to remind us that he is a scientist after all and not just an evil speedster. I would still love to see a younger Thawne in the future, seeing him get his powers and experiment with the Speed Force, and then eventually meeting Barry and seeing how he turned into who he is now. Yeah, I'm totally with you on all that. I mean, we've gotten little tiny glimpses, but yeah, I think they don't actually. There was some future stuff of Thawne as a teenager, was there not, with his parents?
I do not recall this.
And his teachers? I think so. In The Flash, there was. I remember seeing, there was some things about him being really, really smart and getting in trouble and some stuff with his teachers at the science building. I remember seeing something like that. I'm pretty sure that must have been Flash, because where else would they show that? Still, I'm with you there. And then we get the saddest part of the episode when Henry sacrificing himself and Nate getting one last heart-to-heart with him. Rest in peace, Commander Steele. Henry and Nate had really strong performances this episode. Yes, they did. Mm-hmm. Stray thoughts. Mick makes a quip about wanting to go see Elvis at the Astrodome. Don't worry, Mick, you'll get to meet Elvis next season.
Oh, yeah.
Ray was so excited about being on the moon, and all he got was a copy in response. Made me laugh. So did his little Matt Damon in the Martian-esque video recording he made that got interrupted by an annoyed Thawne. Yeah. I was actually going to use that entire clip too, because that cracked me up, because I totally forgot that Thawne interrupts him, and he's just looking over his shoulder like, "What are you doing?"
Well, he has to, because he can't say on Legends. Because that's the line. Science the out of this.
I know. It was just so funny. Just look on his face. What are you doing?
I know, it's great.
For that moment, we forget that he's there. That's why it's hilarious.
It is.
Speaking of saying that word, we have to bleep those out on our podcast, or we can't release it as a clean podcast.
Oh, well, sorry.
I haven't been taking notes on it. It's interesting how this aberration that Thawne created was actually a positive one. The Apollo 13 mission didn't suffer the engine failure and was more or less a success. Does that mean in this timeline we never get the Tom Hanks Apollo 13 movie? Well,
I don't know.
I guess, but the thing is, they lose contact with Apollo 13 for the exact same amount of time. It's just the Legends managed to fix the problems in time for the ship to regain contact. So for all they know that it had problems of some kind, they just maybe don't know what.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And in Apollo 13, doesn't that actually happen? They lose contact as they're going around the backside of the moon?
Yep. Once you go around the dark side of the moon, there's no contact to Earth.
Right. And also, how did they explain Jack Swigert just mysteriously vanishing from the ship after the two astronauts woke up? Houston, we still have a problem.
Well, wasn't
Because Eobard takes over.
Wasn't Thawne still in it? No, he wasn't. He was on the Waverider. I don't know. I got nothing. Good point.
They're missing. They're short an astronaut. So yeah, there you go. There's a writing hole right there.
Yep.
This episode was a bit rocky, but still had some emotional punches with Nate's storyline. But I will forgive this episode being bumpy because I thought the remaining 3 episodes were stellar, and I still think I'm going to hold to that. But that means that there's only one rewatch left. That's all for now. Looking forward to digging into the final 3 episodes next week and finally seeing Snart again. Until next time, your friend Dreamweaver. Yeah, she gets way more fresh in her memories than it is mine because I don't remember what's coming.
I remember some key things that are coming, but I don't remember many of the details. So it'll be fun.
Cool. Awesome stuff, guys, all around as always. And again, if you guys want to join us, just follow these instructions.
If you would like to be part of the show, you can send in feedback to tomorrowslegends@gmail.com, spelled with 1 R. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends, also with 1 R. Join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
Yeah, just like Dreamweaver says, we only got 3 left and we're doing it all in one fell swoop, Harley.
We are, so we're going to finish it out and we're going to break time.
We're going to break time. And it might mean we actually have a little bit longer of an episode back to our old ways.
I know.
You should have seen the look on her face just now.
I'm so tired.
We're doing okay. But yeah, guys, that's one last rewatch of 3 episodes. So those of you that are not sending feedback and want to get in for the very end, the big finale, please do, because it'd be great to hear how everybody thought, like, this overall, how the second season went. And that's something you guys, that the feedbackers that are joining us, can kind of think about for what you want to send in is, now that we're at the end, overall, what did you think of season 2? You know, compare it to what we have now, compare it to season 1, compare it to, you know, just overall, where does this season stand out of the 5 that we've had so far? And yeah, just let us know about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty sure I've already made my decision.
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah.
In what sense? Like where it stands, or?
Yeah.
Overall? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it too. We've been ripping through it pretty fast, so I'm surprised we're already at the end.
I know, yeah. The rewatches go fast when you do 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah, that's true. But we're trying to time it for everything else coming back. And me and Harley might have some news coming for you next week too. We still got to discuss a couple of things, but we might have a surprise news break for you. So tune in for that. And we'll see you guys next week. This is The Flash signing off.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.